Meantime, let's talk about protesters and whether they, if they contribute towards disruption and demonstrations, they should have to compensate those that are disrupted. Graham Wetton, police commentator, Ben Larsson, supporter for Just Stop Oil, both with us this morning. Make your case, first of all, Graham.
It came from the Legality report, which was published yesterday, which was looking at protest legislations and basically police powers and how you can manage protests. And it's because of the frequency we've seen in the last few years of like Just Stop Oil protests, Palestinian protests. So he's now got a number of recommendations. I think it's about 290 odd pages in the report, 40 odd recommendations, one of which was, should there be a responsibility on protest organisers to pay some form of money compensation for any disruption caused? So that's one recommendation. Might be slightly difficult to enforce, bear in mind how some of these groups are set up and organised with no leaders, no hierarchy, but I think there has to be some responsibility if you're going to protest on the streets to then maybe recompense or pay something towards policing costs and disruption to society.
Ben?
It's rich to hear about responsibility. This came from the Lord Walney report. Lord Walney is directly in the pocket of arms companies and fossil fuel companies. Okay, so he's got direct financial ties.
Allegedly.
No,
he's not here. He's not here,
okay.
So, and I don't know enough to say whether he is or not,
okay,
so I'm just going to put that out there.
Absolutely, I'll explain it to you. He's
That's
said,
very good of you.
as a matter of record, that he has direct links to firms which profit when arms companies and oil and gas companies profit. So Lord Walney's financial interests are directly in line with groups that Just Stop Oil and Palestine Action, two protest groups who are named in the report, are directly seeking to oppose. It's a man who's paid by big oil.
Yeah, but what about members of the public who are frustrated and can't get to where they need to be, and the police service who have other things to do and have to come along and police Just Stop Oil gluing themselves to the pavement or whatever? You don't feel that there should be some sort of compensation for both of those groups? I
mean, if you want to talk about compensation, what happens if you sit in a road? You sit in a road, you get arrested, the police take you away, they fine you, there's a victim surcharge. All this has been the case for the last number of years. What this report is seeking to do is to put a financial burden on the right to protest. And the right to protest is a cornerstone of our democracy in the UK.
Makes a good point.
Yeah, it is. It is a cornerstone, but by the same token, it has to be a responsibility if you're going to protest. And as Ben probably knows, that most of those fines are paid by the groups anyway. They're not paid by the actual individuals. There's a collective fund. So most financial penalties are not imposed on the actual individual. And Lord Walney's report doesn't just list Just Stop Oil or the other groups that are protesting recently. It's actually a very extensive report. It covers virtually all protest groups in the country, right-wing, left-wing, environmental, etc. Very extensive, one of the most extensive reports I've read for a number of years. Comes up with a number of recommendations. This is one of them, that should there be some sort of financial responsibility. And when you look at the cost of, I think Just Stop Oil's protest in 2022, 2023, cost around £7 million each one. So a total of about £15 million in total. 515 protests over 13 weeks. That's 5 a day. That's not sustainable for society or policing to manage that. It's a huge impact and it's hugely disruptive, which is actually the intention.
Sorry, £15 million is not sustainable, but we're in a climate crisis that's going to cost hundreds of billions, trillions of pounds. Like this, it doesn't make any sense for the political elite and the news media to focus on punishing protesters, finding protesters, when we're in a situation where we're facing crops that aren't planted, flooded fields. We know we're going to have a shortfall of food this summer and autumn. The priorities are so skewed, it's insane.
Everybody, no one I've ever met in policing or in society negates the climate issue. The climate issue, everybody understands it's the weather's changing, etc. But I think the way it's being highlighted is clearly, the protest is clearly intended to be disruptive. This is what the Lord Walney report is looking at, managing the protest lawfully, within the law, within a democratic society. Can we manage these protests? That's what his recommendations, all of them, about 40 of them, are trying to manage. The fact you can protest about this is a fundamental part of society, and they should be allowed to protest. It's the frequency, and even I'd encourage Just Stop Oil to liaise with the police. The police will facilitate your protests, but most of their protests are literally spontaneous. They just turn up unannounced, disrupt the roads, and then the police have to react to it. So it's a reactive policing response. You cannot plan this. You do not know how many officers you need, where to take them from, or where to put them. That's the huge impact on society and policing from the protests.
I'd just like to quickly respond to your idea that Lord Walney's report is to legally respond to protests, to expand the legal framework to do that. time and time again, this government is found to be unlawful. That means they are criminal. So their climate policies are found to be criminal. Their policies against dissent and protest have also just been found to be criminal for the second time just 2 weeks ago. So this government is not engaged in lawful action. It's the government who are the real criminals. And I'd really encourage you to have the CEO and the board members of Shell, of BP, of all these companies who we know are destroying the world and costing lives. But we just don't see board members and CEOs being invited on shows like this.
Well, that's not true.
Asked to explain why they're not paying out for their criminality, and why they're not subsidising the people whose lives they're disrupting.
I should point you to Ian King Live. Final thought?
Work with the government and work with policing. That you can protest. Protests can be facilitated and can be lawful. The problem with most of Just Stop Oil's protests is they are illegal, they're unlawful, they're just turning up and protesting. It's clear they are intending, they're almost like the remit is to disrupt. They want to be disruptive, not work within society, not work within democratic laws.
Final thought, Ben?
The problem with Just Stop Oil's protests, in the view of the government and the police, is that they actually work. So I'd invite any viewers, if they're down to get involved with Just Stop Oil, go to juststopoil.org and get involved.
OK, I'm sure they know where to find you. Sometimes the police don't until it's too late. It's good to see you both. Thank you very much indeed.